and Joe Rossinello, and once more, let us go into the breach. Joe, in our lifetimes, we've seen people in government who lie like a rug, okay? They just lie and lie, and we know it, and we know that it happens on both sides. But a lot of times, I feel like something is unspinnable. You can't spin something, okay? This guy, Mayorkas, and for all of you out there who are listening to us on social media, we're going to do a couple of videos on Mayorkas today, okay? This guy takes lying to an entirely new level. Joe, we're Italian. We grew up with liars, okay? All right. This guy just takes things to a level where you just go, how is anybody letting him get away with this? So we're going to play the first clip, all right, and talk about it. I'm going to play it, and then I want to tell you what I mean by lying. And then I really, really want your comments because maybe I'm seeing it wrong. Maybe you can straighten me out. But let's listen to this because my stomach turns when I listen to this guy.
The president yesterday at his commencement address for the Howard University graduates called white supremacy the major domestic terror threat in this country. Is that correct?
It tragically is. You know, in the terrorism context, domestic violent extremism is our greatest threat right now. Individuals are driven to violence because of ideologies of hate. Anti-government sentiments, false narratives, personal grievances, and the like. And regrettably, we have seen a rise in white supremacy.
Now, Joe, here's where I want to go with this. Did you catch what he said about false narratives? You know where I'm going with this? It means if you would disagree with the government narrative, if you're engaging in disinformation, okay, you're a white supremacist. This is the same guy who watched all those white kids, all right, in Antifa. They're all rich white kids, okay, driven by hate. Hatred, those guys, they're driven by hatred of everything, all right? They're radical leftists. They hate God, they hate country, they hate family, they hate everything. If there's anybody who's driven by hate, it's Antifa. You know what he's trying to say? That a guy like Mark Houck, pro-life, prayer warrior Catholic in front of an abortion clinic in Philadelphia gets arrested. All right. That guy's a white supremacist. That's what he's trying to say. He's trying to say that anything conservative really is white supremacy. And we just let the left, particularly this liar, get away with that narrative. And Joe, I'm up to here with it because this guy's got to get pushed back against really, really hard. Joe, talk to me, man.
Couple things. This is a tactic. The tactic is this. First of all, he is lying, but it's a tactic, and they're both on the same page. Anything they disagree with, label it. That's something that's unpalatable for society, which is white supremacy. If this guy was fair, give me an example.
Right.
What's your example of white supremacy? Specific. I want line items. There is no example. It's basically being done. It's gaslighting. What they're trying to do is saying, if you disagree with me, you're a white supremacist, you're a hater, you're a fascist. And you know something? It's working because the press is their tool.
Well,
that's the sad
thing.
part. And people digest it. They just eat it up. And they eat it up. And you'll say, no, well, I am going to vote for, say, Ron DeSantis. Well, he's a white supremacist. He censors books. What do you mean? I like his fiscal policy. I like his judicial views. He censors books. They're pornographic books. I'm not for that. What do you mean? But this is where the press is disingenuous. And let's be honest, this man sold his soul. He'll do anything and say anything. And sadly, too many people in politics, that's how they look at it.
No, Joe, but here's the thing. They're letting him get away with it. Like, we're going to play another clip in a little while. Like, we're going to, after this video, where he's talking about the border. It's so manifestly false what he's saying is what bothers me. It's like, think about it. Ron DeSantis burns books. Nobody burns books better than the left. If you gave them the opportunity to ban the Bible, they would do that.
They both
know that. What's that?
Banned it in school.
Right. You can't bring a Bible into school. But so who are the book burners? They are. Who are the ones who burn witches at the stake? They are. They'll cancel everybody. They'll cancel us in a second. They'll watch you starve in the street. all right, rather than be able to go out and get a job unless you kowtow to Chairman Biden, all right, and his puppet masters like Barack Obama. And this guy is just a pure put-up job because look, I'm going to go back to it. Who's more racist than Black Lives Matter when you think about it? Black Lives Matter. Like, let's take a couple of Italian Americans like us. I happen to revere Christopher Columbus. I don't make anybody into saints, okay? The thing is, I revere Christopher Columbus and his achievements. Was it not an act of racism to go and target statues of Christopher Columbus, to throw them in the Ohio River? I think it was. This guy had nothing to say about that. And those are real acts of violence. Like you said, show me. What? The Proud Boys punched a couple of Antifa members in the face? Those are white kids punching white kids. That's not what I didn't see the Proud Boys going after Black Lives Matter. The Proud Boys were there to fight against Antifa. I'm not defending Proud Boys, but you're going to call them white supremacists. That's the best you could do? White supremacists? So, again, where is the violence coming from? The violence, Joe, according to guys like this, okay, and people like Merrick Garland, is the violence is when you, as a father, don't like when what your children are being taught in school, and you go and read the school board, the riot act, in a school board meeting. You know, we have to be really careful about intimidation. We have to be really careful about harassment and people who are raising their voice. Really raising your voice in a democracy now? Even yelling at a public official? Yeah, yelling. Even if I'm raising my voice the way I am now at a public official, you're going to equate that with what Black Lives Matter and Antifa did in 2020 and what they're doing now. That's the galling part of this, is that we can objectively, not ideologically, objectively point out the violence of the radical left. This guy can't give you one example of white supremacy. Not when, you know what they'll say? Charlottesville. And that was a whole put-up job. They'll say, well, look at Charlottesville. Really? That's the best you could do is Charlottesville? Joe, I'm just, again, one more time. This guy gets away with it like I don't know what.
He gets away with it because of the press. And this is my recommendation to people. This is what I do. Turn the news off.
Good idea.
Turn it off. That includes Fox. Turn it off.
Well, let's make real quick. Let's be clear about turning off Fox. Without Tucker, I gotta say there is no good reason to watch Fox.
I don't watch any mainstream news. I do all my own research. And this is the thing. Turn the news off and look at the fruit that this government is bearing. Make your own determination. The news is telling you what to think. It's all talking points. And I got news for you. They don't support you. They're not on your side, and they have an agenda.
Oh,
So turn it off. This guy is simply a talking head who lies through his teeth to maintain the establishment's power. And the press is on the same side. Talking point to brainwash you.
Joe, let me make a point to you about violence. All right. If I, as an individual, know that someone wants to do harm to you, and I allow it to happen, is that not, and I know I could do something to stop it, is that not an act of violence on my part?
Oh, you're culpable. Of course you would be culpable.
This is what I mean by galling. This guy, and I'm glad Hawley and others pointed it out. Okay, well, not to him necessarily, but to Merrick Garland. Guys like Mayorkas and Garland, they did nothing when violent extremists went to the homes of Supreme Court justices to do violence to them. They did nothing. And they had nothing to say about it. And that's what I mean. The Republicans right now, Joe, we have a groundswell of support for impeaching Mayorkas. No, you don't. You're never going to get rid of this guy. The only way you get rid of him is a regime change. That's the only way that's going to happen. And that's a whole other question about what's going to happen in 2024. This guy's staying right where he is. And guess what, Joe? I'm going to give you the final word. He's going to continue to go on his favorite cable news stations and go and spew this nonsense. Joe, final comment.
Joe, you're right. That's why people have to just turn it off. Our government does not work anymore. It's nothing more than a show. The press is part of that show, and they don't represent the people. People have to get that out of their head. They actually think, like you've made that reference in the movie Wall Street. Bud, you actually think that this is a democracy?
Yeah.
It isn't, guys. This, and they're saying, "Oh, you're an extremist, Joe Restino." No, they don't represent you. They get nothing done. It's simply a show. And frankly, people have to turn it off. And if you ask me, we have to get a groundswell, a grassroots groundswell of people to take our government back.
Well, the
Until
one way
that
to do
happens, waste of time. All this is a show.
Well, one thing I would say, and I'm just going to end it with this, is that's why the government right now, if they could do many things for that would help us. Right now, I think the most important thing that they could do is to protect the internet and the right that we have. Like
100%
Elon,
agree.
what's that?
100% agree.
Yeah, because then as en masse, all of the podcasters out there, not just Frontline with Joe and Joe, but everybody out there who's speaking our language, go on Twitter, push the envelope on YouTube, even though we know they'll put a strike against you. Go on Twitter, increase your social media presence, start getting it out there, hashtag your videos, join the conversation. That's the way, Joe. If you're talking about a groundswell, if the conservatives could just do that, if they could get these social media companies not to cancel us, because again, they're the book burners, they're the cancelers, they're the ones burning witches at the stake. Okay, if the conservatives could at least do that, then we'll take it from there and we'll get out into the public arena. Thanks for joining us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Stick around; we got a lot more content for you this week. If you're seeing this on social media, wherever you're seeing it, please hit something that's going to help us, particularly on Twitter. Follow us there. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. Remember, until the next time, our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.